I think it's so important to value the people that work with you, to ask them how they're doing, to know a little bit about what they're going through.
Welcome back to another episode on the Owwll podcast. To my left, Jessica Graves, who's going to talk all about the yachting world today, and also about TV, editing, copywriting, a little bit about everything, her journey in TV out in LA, New York, as well as South Florida, of course. If this is your first time tuning in, this is the podcast where we get to interview the best experts all around the United States. A lot of them fly in just to be on the Owwll podcast. And the best part is you could call these Owwll professionals, these influencers, these pro athletes, celebrities, right on the Owwll app. Most of them are brand new when they join us on the Owwll podcast. And then the beauty is they're only $1 for their first 10 calls because they love giving back. Right? How cool is that you could talk to Jessica for $1 starting today? Let's kick into your backstory. Tell our audience, what is Yacht TV all about? How did you come up with the concept? And how did it all start in your early days?
Okay.
You went to college and then all of a sudden you graduated. Like, what state were you living in? How did you find mentors to help you get going? Did you even have a mentor, I guess?
I did, yeah. I've been very fortunate that I've had a lot of nice people that have been willing to talk to me over the years, depending on which field I was in. So I graduated from University of Florida, and I started in NPR at University of Florida and also on television. And I enjoyed being a news anchor and a news reporter, and that's where I learned how to edit. It was linear editing back then, and the cameras were massive. So I got quite a workout being a one-woman band.
Not like these days where you can go right into an app and change words, put captions on there, and then take an hour video and put it into 1 minute, and boom, you got a reel. Like back in those days.
Oh, and we're talking live shots.
Not easy, right?
No, and we're talking about live shots as well. So anything that can go wrong typically does, and there's no editing, there's no post. So I did the news track for quite a while, and after I graduated, I took a job at a CNN affiliate in Austin. I worked the overnight shift for about a year. Realized pretty quickly that news was not my jam, so I decided let me pack my things, go to Los Angeles, where I eventually landed a job at Entertainment, and red carpets, that was my wheelhouse. I wanted to talk about who's dating who's wearing what on the red carpet, and who's winning an Academy Award. So,
and what year approximately? I'm just trying to.
97.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So that definitely just dated me. So, but so I worked in LA for quite a while, and eventually made my way into on-air promotions and marketing. I wrote True Hollywood Story. I flew down here or out here from California to interview Ivana Trump at her house during one of the True Hollywood Stories that I was producing and writing, which was very interesting. And we can go into that little tidbit later. I worked for Playboy TV, so I spent lots of time at the Playboy Mansion with Hef and the girls. And, I got to meet a lot of really cool celebrities.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, not for young years.
After Dark. We'll have a whole episode about Hugh Hefner and the Playboy Mansion.
I've got some stories. So, I lived in LA for quite a while, and I worked in entertainment broadcasting, but I really wanted to live in New York. And I feel that everybody should, at some point in their life, especially before you settle down and have kids, live in New York, because the people that you meet, it's inspiring, and everybody really wants to, to make it there, right? That's why they say. Let's
be honest. It's just like everyone needs to be uncomfortable on a 7 train or a 4-5 train where you're like, why am I in the subway right now? And then all of a sudden, you built strength, right?
Yeah.
Great.
Oh, if it doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger for sure. So then in New York, I landed a job pretty quickly with Viacom. So I was working for Nick Jr., Nickelodeon, but I really wanted to be with MTV. And my dream ever since I was little was to be a VJ for MTV.
Of course. Every child was glued to the TV, and everyone.
Oh, yeah. So I worked at MTV for a while, and I bounced around to different networks there within the Viacom family. And then in 2014, I won an Emmy for MTV for some work that I had done for writing and directing a PSA, public social announcement, for one of their scripted series. And, I feel like I had done everything within the TV world that I wanted to do. And I love production. But once I started settling down and I had my kids, and I realized I can't keep commuting into the city, because at that point I was living on the Jersey Shore. And, I was just burning the candle at both ends. And since I'm from South Florida originally, I'd come back for visits. And after 16 years coming back and forth and seeing how much South Florida had changed, it's become so much more culturally diverse. There's so many more opportunities for people who are in broadcasting, in the arts. I decided, you know what, let me just go back to Florida. So about 7 years ago, we moved back here, and I did some production in the integrated marketing world for Lifetime, for Fox Business. I continued working on my voiceover career, and I also started doing some on-air coaching. So for those CEOs who are recording or filming videos and they look very stiff, those are the types of people that I work with.
She's pointing at me, guys.
No, you seem like you've had some training.
Well, just by trial and error, right? When you're in business like yourself, and I got thrown to South Florida myself, and I had to figure new things out in the financial service business. I'm like, I got to do a podcast. I got to differentiate myself. And I sucked in the early days because, back then people weren't used to going on Zoom as much. And back then you're like, do I want to be filmed? Not as many people are used to being on TV. When the lights go on, people freeze.
Oh, they do.
So I just did it week in and week out, and I've gotten better because of that. But a lot of people just don't get out of that. Like, just try it, just go for it, and be embarrassed in the early days. And I guess it goes back to my childhood in New York City. My father owned a store called Captain Hook's, and he would throw me, behind the cash register as people were walking up, and I was embarrassed. I didn't know what to do, and he would just, make jokes with customers, and I would go to flea markets and garage sales with him, and I just learned so much from him. He was my mentor. And then coming down here, I was like, I got to do it. Right. It's going to be embarrassing in those early days. And I still have those videos up on YouTube because we didn't film back then. We did it. It was a podcast. Podcasts can be edited to make yourself look better. A little easier when you're not being recorded. It's not live. But as you go to like Facebook Live, Instagram Live, all of a sudden you can't hit the reverse button and cut it. You're on air.
Right.
It's a lot different. Like when you were a broadcaster right, and doing the news, it's a different feeling. And we used to do these little videos at the end for 3-4 minutes. And then I would screw up the people's names and I recut. And it's just nerve-wracking when you have people behind the scenes always watching you, right? All of a sudden, that uncomfortableness comes up, and it's just practice. I think that's every profession. People don't realize that you do anything hundreds and hundreds of hours, like all of a sudden you will become an expert. Would you agree that most people can be coached?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's important to remember that you should always do one thing every day that scares you. I think that was Eleanor Roosevelt. Yeah. And I firmly believe that. And the more uncomfortable you get every day, the more comfortable you'll become. So it's important. And, as far as being able to be coached, it's practice, and it doesn't mean that I'm going to, go fly a plane. Like, I would practice, right? So everything that you do, if it's important.
Don't try that before getting a couple lessons. Like, maybe
don't try this at home, kids.
Maybe that one you shouldn't try right now.
Once I came back to South Florida and I was working in production for a while here in the integrated marketing space, it was kind of a B2C, which was new to me. So I got to deal with a lot of the brands and develop commercials and entertain them, create entertaining programming for the brands, which I found very exciting, but there was a lot of travel involved. And I was burnt out on traveling. So I dabbled in the nonprofit world, doing marketing, advertising, PR. I ran a luxury lifestyle magazine in South Florida for the past year, so I got more familiar with the luxury sector. And living in Fort Lauderdale specifically, it's the yachting capital of the world. Yeah. So as a person who's always thinking about entertainment, television, and then how to monetize that from an advertiser's perspective, I just looked in my backyard and I'm like, where's the channel for yachts? Because the money's there and it's a huge industry, and not just here, but all around the world. And there wasn't a channel for it. So I started doing some research and I decided, you know what, if I don't do it, who's going to? And why not? I know all the pieces, the parts, and I've got some really great people that I can work with around the world. So in December of last year, we launched Yacht Life TV on Roku. So we currently have an app on Roku. So if you have Roku, please download Yacht Life TV. And then the goal is to continue growing to Amazon, to all of the other the streaming services, and then to create channels on Freevee, Sling, all of the other TV channels. And then the advertisers have a place to actually target that audience of motivated consumers. So that's how Yacht Life TV was created. And then,
of course, people want to get through to you because the yacht owners possibly.
Well, and that's another
$2.
You actually meet some really amazing people, and it just opens your world because it's not just yachting, it's private aviation. Yeah. I've now flown on private jets. I've been on Sikorsky helicopters. I've been on massive super yachts, and I've met some of the most amazing people who are CEOs, who are titans in their own industry, and this is their hobby. And, I got to borrow a McLaren one weekend. I've gone to F1 races. I've gone to St. Bart's. It's just it's this amazing world that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily get to see. So Yacht Life TV focuses on it caters to the 1%, the people who have those hobbies, and then everybody else who wants those hobbies. So it's aspirational television, which I think we all need a little bit of sometimes. I'm actually working on 2 original series right now, and one of them, not to let too much out just yet, but we're in the process of filming a very similar show to Cribs, but on yachts. Ooh, and it's called Level Up. So it'll be out with the pilots coming out soon. And then, we've got some additional programming that's all going to be original. And then also the syndicated programming, but the Pimp My Yacht.
So tell us about just the different things you're filming. I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I want our audience to wrap their head around it. What are these episodes like? What are the different directions you're going? Of course, you have to start with, one basic concept. And then eventually I know like many entrepreneurs are like, no, I want to do this, and this. So give us kind of the first example. What's going to be released?
Like I'd mentioned, Level Up. Our host is Sharon Tay. She was an MSNBC host. She was on one of the LA morning shows for a very long time. She's got a huge following. And so she will be going aboard some of the yachts. We've actually just reached out to Lauren Sanchez, who's with Jeff Bezos. He created this little bookstore, Amazon. Know him? Okay.
I think I've heard of it. Have you heard of it?
He has a brand new yacht. And so we're trying to get on board with Jeff and with Lauren because Sharon has the connections in LA, and talking to even if it's not Jeff, there's some amazing billionaires out there that will welcome us onto their boats or their private jets and show us how they enjoy the spoils of their wealth, right? And how they got there. And I think that's an interesting thing because anytime you go to a marina and you see these gorgeous, massive super yachts, you wonder who owns that and how did they get all that money? And without asking that directly, we can find out, what it took to get to where they are. And because she's such a seasoned journalist, she asks the right questions and she has the access that nobody else would have. So that's one of the shows that we're currently working on. We also work with content creators. So anybody who has a maritime or luxury destination travel YouTube channel, they're already creating this content. And so we have families that are living aboard their sailboats with their kids, and they're traveling, not even going on land for a year, and they're just traveling around the world. And so what we do is we create series around what they're doing, it's a 27-minute episode, and then we have our commercial breaks. Cool. And so that's another one, sailing adventures with actual families. So it's reality. We've got fabulous yacht chefs, which if you've ever, first of all, trying to make a 5-course meal alone is impossible for me because I make mac and cheese and I don't always make it right. So these yacht chefs, they work in these tiny galleys and they just create these amazing meals with all the preference sheets, and they still deliver these gorgeous picture perfect meals. So we have a wonderful chef named Dean Silva. It's called Today's World Kitchen with Dean Silva, and he goes around the world and he interviews Michelin star chefs both in kitchens and aboard yachts.
Okay.
There's plenty more coming.
And of course there's got to be a lot of entertainment, right? People who have hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars, they don't just go on a yacht and just take a tour when they leave the dock, right? They want musicians on there. They want to have parties on their yachts and have other celebrities to join. Can you go into that piece? Like what type of entertainment kind of gets put onto these things that a lot of people aren't aware of?
My executive producer who lives in LA or just south of there, he's the one that's overseeing the Level Up show with Sharon Tay. Cool. He is also working on a podcast.
Make it interactive, which is pretty unique because so often everyone's listening to podcasts, but they want to get more involved. They want to ask that billionaire a question or two, be like, okay, we know what you're doing now, but tell us about those early days.
Right.
Right. Tell us those days where, you had to work 14-hour days and do things that you never wanted to share, right? And made you who you are today. Because lots of times people hear the glossy story, right? That they see nowadays, but it wasn't like that, right? There was so many failures along the way who and those failures typically made them who they are today.
Right.
Can we talk about failures for a second?
Failures?
Yeah, talk about like some things, and they're not always failures, but I mean, there's just like, humps that, made you who you are today.
Well, I mean, I don't think the podcast is long enough to discuss all of those bumps along the road, but
Sure.
I do very much believe that it's not just failures aren't a bad thing, right? Like Thomas Edison, he tried 1,000 times, and then the 1,001st time, he actually invented the light bulb. But had he given up, we'd be sitting here in the dark right now.
Yes.
So as far as failures go, I think it's mostly, and this is what I tell some of the younger people that are entering into the industry, specifically in broadcasting, it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to pivot. And I went to school for broadcast journalism. I wanted to be an anchor from the time I was 6 years old. And once I actually was working in a real live newsroom, I realized pretty quickly that it was depressing. I didn't want to talk about people dying and fires. I wanted to talk about the red carpet.
Yeah, it's all the negativity stuff.
And in the newsroom, when I told everybody that I was moving to LA and that I was going to be working for E! Entertainment because I want to do entertainment news, they all shot me down. They said, well, that's not real news. And it was hard because these are the people that I saw as my peers. And this was the field that I always thought I was supposed to be in, that I was going to excel in. But I had to have, a come to Jesus with myself and go, if this is what I want to do, then you just have to shut out the naysayers and you just have to follow your own path and follow your gut. So I would say that would have been, I could have seen that as a failure, that I had moved to Austin, Texas, sight unseen, all by myself, worked at the station, and I thought this was my dream job, a CNN affiliate, and then quit. And I did feel like a little bit of a loser, because I was like, I can't believe I did all of this and now I'm just quitting and giving up. But it wasn't. It was a bridge to going to LA and then having all of those amazing experiences and seeing what else is out there. And I mean, there were times where I would screw up, but I think admitting your screw up, but learning from it is the most important thing. So, and also learning that there's people that you can ask questions of, because a lot of times people want to give you their advice because they've done it and, maybe they want to help you out or not see you make the same mistake. After LA, I'm trying to think of any specific failures. I mean, I've tried different things along the way outside of the production world that maybe haven't
The most
panned
important
out.
thing I hear all the time is what you're saying is you keep trying.
Yeah, I don't give up.
The more you keep trying, the more you don't give up, all of a sudden you become the luckiest person in the room. And everyone's like, oh, she's so lucky. She started Yacht Life TV at the perfect time, right? Mm-hmm. Right when they're talking about, obviously, what's going on TV right now. It's all in the boating industry right now. And of course, all of a sudden that could be used to your advantage, because now all of a sudden Yacht Life TV is, taking off because more eyeballs are on the ocean right now, right?
Right. People are thinking about it. So one of the beautiful things that has happened in the past few years is that we're all able to kind of make our own decisions. Employers are realizing that they have to make it pretty nice for you to come into the office and not want to work remotely. Life has changed so much. And as far as how you can measure success versus failure, for me, it's not about how much money I'm going to make. It's not the number in my bank account. It's my freedom, my ability to be creative, my ability to make my own decisions for my brand and to work with great people. And to me, I already feel successful, even though we're still in our infancy stages as a network. What we've done so far and the small team that we have, they're fabulous people, and everybody is really enthusiastic, and everybody feels confident that this is going to be a great thing. And what's even better, my old news director, who actually fired me from my CNN affiliate in Austin, again, that was that loser moment that I was feeling. He reached out to me, right?
Wow, that's a win.
Oh, yeah.
That feels good.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So it's been about 12 years since we last spoke, and he reaches out to me on LinkedIn and says, hey, if there's ever anything I can do to help you, please let me know. I think what you're doing is absolutely amazing. This is a brilliant idea.
Congrats.
Wow.
Thank you.
Cool. Can we talk a little bit about networking? Right. Often we see some of the most successful entrepreneurs, don't touch base on this topic much. And behind the scenes, they usually have an enormous network from years and years of just shaking hands, going to grab coffee with people, doing Zoom meetings. And of course, the Owwll platform, is is bringing that in a different path, that you could accelerate it by just making outbound calls and connecting with people instantly.
I love it.
So tell us a little bit about how important networking is to your entire career and your future.
Well, I mean, networking is everything, right? And even just not just in the business world, but who you know is going to shape your life. So as far as wasting time, and no offense, but I don't want to go out to drinks and dinner with random people all the time to do networking. I have a life outside of work. And I also don't want to take that a 2-hour lunch so I can maybe schmooze somebody that will become a future client. So I think it's very important to be involved with the professional industries within your industry. So within the maritime industry, we've got MIASF, we've got the IYBA. Those are, I know it's a lot of acronyms, right? But it's basically the maritime industry. You've got Informa that runs all of the boat shows and the art shows. And a lot of that has a lot of overlap because that's the 1%. And as far as LinkedIn, it's fabulous. But what you're doing with the Owwll app is next level because I don't have to waste time going out for drinks and schmoozing or sending an email and waiting for somebody to get back to me. Cold calling, forget it. Sure. But with the Owwll app, I know they actually want to talk to me.
Yeah. And the best part is you could increase your price to any level. Mm-hmm. So if your price is $100 for 10 minutes to get through, obviously, people aren't wasting your time.
Right.
Anyone willing to spend $100, even if they're soliciting you, there's still a reason. They believe in their product so much that they're willing to spend $100 to solicit you. And then a lot of times you're like, wait, actually, that was pretty good. Even though it was a solicitation, I'm all ears. Right. Because it was a great idea. And it could be someone like me being like, I got this great idea. Let's do an interactive podcast on Yacht Life TV. I have the genius idea. We'll bring all our past guests on there. And, we'll have the founder of Celsius, being interviewed on a yacht. Mm-hmm. And then you'll be like, okay, that was worth $100.
Absolutely.
You paid me to pitch me an idea that I maybe will run with. Mm-hmm. Right? Coolest part of the podcast. We're looking down at individuals that are live and telling the world they're happy to take a phone call. So we're going to give a call right now, probably one or two we have time for. And then we're going to get to ask them a question or two.
Okay.
Live on the spot. Okay. So Rebecca, how are you? This is Jason Hill on the Owwll podcast. Rebecca, can you hear us? It's Jason Hill.
I can hear you now. Yes, I can hear you. Good morning.
Good morning. You are live on the Owwll podcast with Jessica Graves. She is the founder of Yacht Life TV. Well, Rebecca, to kick things off, can you tell everyone a little bit about your expertise?
Okay, well, I share with people how to experience more happiness along this journey we call life. And when I say happiness, it's not about what happens. It's really an internal foundation. It is a vibration. It's an energy of contentment, regardless of what happens and regardless of what doesn't happen. And what isn't really taught is that happiness is a practice skill, just like any other skill, from being a musician, a pro athlete, or a landscaper, painter, chef. It's a practice skill. So I just share with people what to practice.
Well, that's very helpful.
Okay, so Jessica, do you have a question you want to ask Rebecca?
Yes, and Rebecca, you're preaching to the choir because I absolutely believe that happiness is a choice we make every morning, and I love that you're helping to spread that word. So, are there any specific books that you would recommend or authors that you'd like to follow that you would suggest?
That's a really good question. Well, I'm working on my second book right now, which is called Programmed for Unhappiness. But my favorite authors are, you heard of David Hawkins?
Yes.
Yeah, David Hawkins is number one for me. And then also I like Eckhart Tolle. I also like, his name is Guy Finley. He's in Oregon. Let's see.
Mel Robbins is wonderful.
Yeah. Mel's good.
Now Mel is good too. And what I love about her is she shares behind the scenes. She shares her life, the good, the bad, the ugly. She shares all of it. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's the human condition, right?
Yes. But let me back up to what you said about it's a choice. Well, when I say program for unhappiness, if you do not recognize that you are programmed, then you really don't have a choice, because robots, when they're programmed, really don't have choices. But I do understand what you're saying. Mm-hmm. You have to be conscious, self-aware, and a lot of people just aren't.
Right. And do you feel that people are becoming more or less satisfied with their lives? And either whichever answer, why do you think that is?
Well, I would have to say less. And the only reason why I'm saying that is just look at the anger in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, happy people don't cause wars. Happy people don't argue. Happy people don't judge. Happy people don't. When I say happy, again, it's an energy.
Mm-hmm.
So the question. Let me ask a question. So, do you worry?
Oh, everybody worries.
Okay, so see, that's I love you. We just met, but that's a program answer, and the worry is a program. You didn't pop out of the womb knowing how to worry.
Right.
So the only reason why people worry, there's only one reason,
and that is
lack of trust.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't trust and worry at the same time.
Right.
I'm not like that.
So,
Rebecca, right?
Well, let me ask you, Rebecca. So I have 2 children, and they're 11 and 6. Of course, I worry about them. I worry about their safety. I worry about whether or not I'm a good parent, if I'm doing the right job, and guiding them. So what would you say would be a good way to deal with that type of worry?
okay, I love this question, and my son happens to be 38, so I was there. But whatever you're vibrating, that vibration of worry, that's what you're teaching them. And put your seatbelt on for this one. That's what you're teaching. So you're really fear-based, worry about their safety. Well, if you trust that whatever is happening for your betterment or to serve your children also. I actually don't even, the worry thing. So my recommendation, I say humbly, is just you practice trusting more and you won't worry about your children.
Mm-hmm.
You don't, I mean, that is something that I understand coming from a mother, with young children, but the worry isn't helping them. It's not helping you.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a toxin.
Yeah. And I think surrendering also helps with that.
There you go. Perfect. Now I'm getting chills. Perfect. Yes.
You always give chills on this podcast, Rebecca. She was on the podcast, I think 2-3 months ago. But thank you very much, Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca.
You're welcome.
We'll chat a little later, and you two have to, of course, chat.
Oh, yes.
On Owwll. I'll make sure she calls you on her way home. Okay, Rebecca? See you
Love
later.
it. Love
Speak
it.
soon.
Yes.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Pleasure to meet you. Pleasure.
too.
You also mentioned it earlier in the show. It's really about creating a good environment, right? Can you speak to that a little bit? Right. I think that's important. So many
good
people,
vibes.
create businesses and they put a bullshit mission statement on the wall.
And you know
or
what?
a quote, and they're like, why are people leaving me? Why is my business not working? It's like, no one wants to come to work.
Because people want to be respected.
Yes.
And if you are going to take the time to hire somebody,
Yes.
get to know them, ask them questions about themselves. I mean, I think we've all worked in toxic environments, and especially when you're first starting out in any business, sometimes you have a tendency to undervalue yourself because of your lack of experience, but that doesn't mean that you should be treated poorly. So just as an example, when I was in LA before I landed at Entertainment, I worked at ICA. I think I'm saying it right. And that is a major entertainment talent division. They represent actors, writers. And the guy that I worked for, he was a talent agent, and he was such a jerk. And he would throw mugs at people, and he would scream at his assistants, and they would put up with it. So I worked for him for 3 days, and then I left. And I said, because I saw the way you spoke to your previous assistant, I know that this isn't going to work out. And honestly, I did him a favor, because why waste time investing in me if I know that I'm not the person who's going to put up with that? The most important thing, and even though we have a very small team of 5, I mean, I've overseen and managed teams of much more people. I think it's so important to value the people that work with you, to ask them how they're doing, to know a little bit about what they're going through, because as much as we want to say we leave stuff at home and you don't bring it to work, we're humans, so treat each other with kindness, respect. And if you took the time to interview and hire somebody, then you probably should trust them a little bit to know what they're doing. And micromanaging will never get anyone anywhere. So you have to let your employees just do what they were hired to do. Give them guidance, give them feedback in a great positive way. And look, you don't have to sugarcoat everything, but it's important that we all know you're doing these things fantastically. I would love to see you be able to do this maybe let's shift gears a little bit. Let's shift our perspective or our approach.
Yes, I agree with everything that you just said, of course. It's hard. Lots of times people try to hire people and then force relationships, and it's just hard. You have to be natural, right? And I think there's some stats on this that you spend more time in the office than a lot of times your own family.
Right.
When you think about it, you wake up, you get to the office at 8 to 10 a.m. most people, and then most of them are staying to the office 4 to 7 p.m. But then, lots of times you have kids, they're going to sleep, right? And then and you literally calculate the hours. It's like, you better be around people you like at the end of the day, right? And like-minded people. So that way, as you're scaling, like it's a team and you're growing together and you could have fun, right? There's nothing better than waking up on a Monday morning excited to go to work, right? I am excited, right? Almost too excited. And how many times I hear people like, yeah, your app's cool, but it's not for me. I go, what do you mean it's not for you? We have every single week 2 podcast guests like yourself. Come on, follow them. You get a notification when they're live, call them. So it's just so cool when you have people around you to just run with things, and you don't have to micromanage it.
And it's inspiring, isn't it, when you meet people who are doing something that you want to do. And with the Owwll app, there are people that are succeeding in the field, whichever one it is that you want to succeed in, and they're open to giving you the advice. They're making the time for you. That's priceless.
Yes, and I'm sure as a leader, it's like nothing feels better than waking up and like seeing the creativity go to work.
Oh, I love it.
And I wake up and I'm like, I see Stephanie put a posting up about like office hours, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like I didn't even see it coming. I just let them run with it. I'm not like, let me see the post before it gets up to Instagram or TikTok.
Well, I have a fabulous social media coordinator, manager, and he does wonderful work, and but it's a collaborative process, and we work so well together, and he surprises me all the time, and I love the way he writes, and so it works out pretty well. And I don't think I micromanage him too much, but you'll have to ask him.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that is everything we have for today's podcast show. Yeah. Jessica will be live on the Owwll platform probably later today. So definitely follow her, and you will get a notification when she goes live. And of course, pick her brain about anything we talked about during today's episode, right? One of the unique,
literally anything from TV to Playboy TV to,
Got me excited there. All of a sudden, I was going to be like, why did you speaking to Jessica all day? But seriously, thank you for coming out to the podcast this morning. And anything you want to let our guests know, I guess URLs, Instagram handles, where they can find you, other than, of course, the Owwll platform.
Of course, other than the obvious. Please follow us on Yacht Life TV. That's our URL, yachtlife.tv. And on Instagram, the Yacht Life TV. And you can visit me on LinkedIn as well. We have a Yacht Life TV LinkedIn, and all the information's on there. If you have Roku, please download it. If you have Apple TV, download it. And, give me a call if you want to talk anything, production, writing, you name it.
Just give her a call. It's that easy.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everyone for listening. Peace.
Post-production for the Owwll podcast is done by Ocean Tree Creative. Reach out to Brian via the link in the show notes.